Hello neighbors, it's Brad here at eTrailer, and today we're taking a look at installing the Blue Ox base plate on a 2020 Chevy Silverado 1500. There's 5 required components when flat towing any vehicle, and on our Chevy 1500 today, we'll start by taking a look at the base plate. And the base plate is going to mount to where the factory tow hooks were, or structurally to the frame of the vehicle, creating a mounting point for the rest of your components and also your tow bar. Tow bar is your second component, and that is a connecting point between the base plate and the hitch on the RV. Now, just like a trailer, we have our safety cables here that'll attach to the tabs on the base plate that are going to be your safety chain loops, and then you'll just attach those to the safety chain loops on your RV. We also have our diode wiring, which is going to transmit the light signals from the RV to the taillights on the towed vehicle, keeping you safe and legal. You'll get your running lights, your turn signals, as well as your brake lights on the taillights of your towed truck. Now, also we have a braking system, which is going to slow and stop the vehicle as you apply the brakes. Today we have an Air Force 1, so that's what this cable is, because we have air brakes on our coach. But this is our breakaway switch, which is part of a braking system, any of them. And that way, in case of a catastrophic disconnect where everything was to fail, it'll pull this cable, bringing the vehicle to a slow or stop. Now, something that's specific to the 1500 and a few other newer vehicles is the fact that it has electric assist brakes. And what you're going to want to do with that is add a battery disconnect. That way you can disconnect the battery and it's going to keep the braking system working fine as you're flat towing the vehicle. Now, you can unhook the battery from the positive terminal, but it's kind of a little bit cumbersome to do each time. So adding a breakaway switch is going to be ideal. And keep in mind, this is a Duramax. There is a diesel specific battery disconnect as well as a gas one. So make sure you're picking up the proper battery disconnect. Installing a base plate on a flat towed vehicle is going to be the foundation for being able to hook up all of your components. And this structurally mounts to the frame of the vehicle. In fact, this one uses the factory tow hook locations to give you your receiver as well as your safety chain loops. Using the factory tow hook loop spot does mean that it's going to fit nice and pretty solid in here. It's a good spot, but there is going to be some trimming required in order for this to fit, as it is a little bit larger. Overall, when you are just driving down the road, it gives it a pretty clean look. You do have your receiver opening that there's caps included to keep this nice and clean, and your safety chain loops are going to extend a little bit, but overall it's not a bad look. When you are ready to tow, it's super easy. You just take your arms, rotate these until they click in, and then you'll be ready to hook up the rest of your components. Now, before we hook up our components, we do want to make sure that our tow bar is going to be level, and the best way to do that is by measuring our base plate tabs here, and we're coming in right at 20 inches, and this is a Z71 1500 Duramax, so yours should be somewhat similar. It might have a little bit higher measurement here, but pretty close. You're then going to want to measure the hitch on the RV from the center of the hitch pin and compare that with the height of your base plate. Now, it should be within a 3-inch window. If it's any more than that, you're going to want to look at a high-low adapter, which is going to basically just rise or drop your tow bar and allow you to get that perfectly level height. There's adjustable ones available. There's also some tow bars that you can pick up. With a truck like this, the eTrailer XHD is a really good option. It has a built-in rise and drop of about 1.5 inches. So if you're really close, that's a good option to be able to mitigate that, but you do want to make sure that yours is nice and level. To get our flat tow components hooked up, pretty easy here. Now, we're using a Blue Ox tow bar, so it has the Blue Ox ends. Not to worry, you can pick up a tow bar with pretty much any ends. So if you have a Roadmaster, it is going to work with your Blue Ox base plate. You just want to make sure that you get those Blue Ox ends, and then it can work with your arms. So we'll just get these in place. We'll then get our safety cables attached. Our diode wiring. And then our braking system components. Now, overall, this base plate went on pretty well. You do have to pull off the grille and the bumper, which is a little bit more than you expect. The only trouble that I see with this one is there's not a whole lot of great mounting points for some of your components. I ended up drilling into the bumper for our diode wiring, and I got a little bit creative here in the pocket next to the fog lamp for our braking system components. The bumper, as well as a lot of the pieces underneath here, are plastic, so trying to find a nice mounting point was a little bit tricky, but get a little bit fabrication, you can make it look really nice and still function just as well. But as far as the installation of the base plate, not too terribly hard to do. We're going to walk you through all those steps to make sure you get yours installed. So let's take a look. To get our base plate installed, we are going to need to remove quite a bit of the front fascia, bumper, grille. And to begin that, we're going to start by taking off our hood release. There's just going to be two T15 torque screws. We'll get these removed. And throughout this whole process, as I mentioned, quite a bit's coming off. So it's very crucial that we have a nice organized spot to keep all of our hardware. That way when we reinstall everything, we'll have everything nice and laid out. So find a nice organized way to keep your hardware. Now there's a fascia cover that goes on top of the grille that attaches to our core support, and there's just a series of plastic push pins that we're going to remove, 10 in total. Now sometimes the center will pop out before you get the bottom. Just make sure they kind of stay together and just go along the outside edge. You can use a trim panel tool like I have here. It makes it nice and easy. You'll just kind of pry up on the slot that's there to get that center portion up. But if you don't have a trim tool, a flathead screwdriver will also work pretty well here. So go ahead, get these removed, and then we'll set our panel aside. At the top of our grill, we're going to find that we have a total of 4 10mm screws. The instructions call them out as 7 mils, so it might have changed throughout trims or years, but either way, go ahead, get these removed. We're going to remove our grill. These kind of just snap into the top here. So you might want to just lift up and you'll kind of feel this kind of separate. You're going to want to kind of keep pressure here. That way it doesn't snap back in place. So just kind of work your way down. If you need to, you can wedge something between here so it doesn't snap in. While pulling back a little bit of pressure, there's a clip that kind of snaps in by the headlight. It's just right here. So just a light amount of wedging kind of there. We'll pry this apart. Now there is going to be another clip underneath, kind of lower here. So as I get this popped out, I'll show you exactly where it's at. And in fact, with this kind of tucked back, I can see these clips down here. I can't exactly, I can kind of get through with my fingers here to pop these off. Now the clips are kind of, there's one that's kind of in the corner here. There's also a center clip. So just kind of keeping pressure in those spots. Just, you know, be firm with it, but also you don't want to crack any of these. So just take your time here. And once you kind of get these popped out, I'll show you, we have a clip here, and then these are the ones that I mentioned earlier. These are by the headlights. So just kind of work through, making sure you get all those. Now we do have this clip here for our camera, and we can separate it right along here. You're going to see there's a red tab. We're just going to pry this up. That's the locking tab. And then from here we can just press this and get our plug separated. Now with that unplugged, we'll just set our grill aside. In the corner of the bumper, there's going to be this kind of rubber panel here right by this plastic, and if you just peel this back a little bit, you're going to see there's an 18mm bolt. There's going to be one on each side, so we'll just kind of peel that back, put our socket on there, and we're going to get these removed. Underneath our truck, we have our belly pan here, and this is held up by 4 13mm screws. So we have one here, and then one tucked up here, and then it'll be the same on the other side. So we'll go ahead and get this removed. Depending on your vehicle, this instruction kind of covers a lot of different vehicles, whether it be a Tahoe, Suburban, 1500 like we have here, So it may vary, but you're going to want to look for an 18 millimeter bolt, and this is going to go vertical. We don't have that. It's next to your tow hook, so we're going to just kind of move along to this bracket here where we have some 10 millimeter bolts holding the lower trim here into kind of the frame. So we'll go ahead, we're going to get these 10 millimeters removed, and we're going to do the same on the other side. And our instructions said there was 3. I have 4 of them here, so just where this bracket goes in, just make sure you're getting all those removed. Now we'll just repeat on the other side. Now off of your frame, there's a bracket that bolts into the side here. We have a 15 millimeter bolt that's running through. We're going to remove this. There's going to be one on each side, so go ahead and get these taken off. When we were underneath and we were looking for the bolt that goes vertical near the tow hooks, it's not really accessible from underneath. And what I've found on this vehicle is if we peel this back again, where we remove that other bolt, if you look kind of further down there, there's going to be a bolt, and that's going to be an 18 millimeter socket to get that removed. So you're going to want an extension here, and this should get our bumper taken off. So there's going to be one on each side. I do recommend kind of leaning against the bumper, because once you get this off, technically the bumper can slide off. It takes a little bit of maneuvering it to get it off, but just so it doesn't fall off, we'll kind of support it. And remember, we do have electrical connections that are still attached, so we don't want to just pull this off all the way. So if you need to, you can grab an extra set of hands here. But we'll kind of just shimmy this off by kind of lifting and pulling as we go. And on our passenger side, that should be where our electrical connection is. Here we find that main harness. So just peel back that red locking tab, push this in, and we should be able to separate this harness. We'll just double check, make sure that we do have another connector on the other side. So we'll just push this tab in, get this separated. Now we can set our bumper somewhere safe. These foam pads just kind of slide on our tow hooks, and we're going to just peel these off to give us a little bit more room. And we're going to be removing the tow hooks. We have an 18 millimeter bolt here, and then we have the 18 that runs all the way across. We may need to put an 18 wrench on the nut side. We are not going to be reinstalling these tow hooks, so you can do whatever you want with them. Hold on to them if you ever revert back to a non-flat towed vehicle. And then we'll just repeat on the other side. Grab our base plate, and you're going to want it in this orientation. So this should kind of slope down. We should have the safety chain loop towards the inside. And we're going to grab the long bolt and put a flat washer on it. And we're going to be using this longer slotted hole here on the base plate. So we're going to need 2 washers to create a spacer. So just kind of slide these on for now. And the hole is going to be right here on this lower bracket. So we'll just kind of slide this all in here. And then when we pass this through, should go all the way through, we're going to finish it up with a flat washer and then our nylon lock nut. Now you don't want to tighten this down, we're going to leave this loose, but just a few threads started with that nylon lock nut should be good enough to hold that in place. And this is going to allow us to slide this up and get everything else bolted up. But go ahead and get your other base plate put in place as well. Now, I think a lot of this is dependent on obviously trim of your vehicle, but we have this lower shutter. I believe this goes to the intercooler. We have a Duramax model here. So it had 7 millimeter screws kind of holding this in on both sides. I just loosened that up. It's going to make it easier getting your hardware passed in. Now, what we're going to be doing here is essentially aligning this up to create a spot to where we can drill through. And there's going to be a total of 4 bolts. So we have the 2 that are located here, and there's only 1 here. So what we're going to be doing is drilling through here. Now on the other side, I actually went ahead and did that. The hole was on the inside that I had to drill through, so I went through on this side. You might have noticed already that getting the bolt out was kind of tricky here and feeding it in as well. So it's just reverse of one of the other sides. So what we'll do here is kind of align this into place and raise this up. We should be able to get this first hole here in place. So what we'll do is get a split washer, a flat washer, and then we're going to put a little bit of thread lock on here. So just cover up the first few threads. And we're going to be doing this for all of our hardware. So if you want, we have this back bolt that's not tightened down. I'm just going to feed a little bit on that thread back there. That way when we tighten it down, it'll be good to go. So we'll just raise this up. We'll pass this in here to kind of hold that in. And then we'll do the same on the inside. So this is where having this loose makes it a little bit easier to feed these in. So we'll get our bolts set up. We'll get the other one also in place on this side. With these passed in, I'm just going to we have these tacked on nuts to these little feeding wires, and we're just going to kind of get these in place here. And this is going to make sure everything's nice and aligned, and that way when we drill, we'll have it properly where we need it to be. So I'm just going to thread these on. Keep these on as well. They come in handy when we torque them down. And all of this hardware is a 3/4 inch, so if you need to, you can grab a ratcheting wrench and just kind of snug it. But I'm going to get these started on all 3 of them. Once we kind of get these to a point where it's, fairly tight, that's going to be a good sign that it's all aligned properly. I'm just going to go ahead and get these snugged down, again with that ratcheting 3/4 just to be sure. Now there's also a hole in the bottom that should align with the hole that's already there, and the instructions they have you drill this out, but our vehicle had the hole lined up already, so I'll go ahead, I'm going to get this one started as well. In fact, I'm just going to kind of feed it through where our removable arms are, and this is going to help draw it up and make sure that it's sitting nice and flat. Now on the other side, I had to take the drill bit and run it all the way through, and this got in the way, so unfortunately I wasn't able to do that. I just used a dead blow and kind of knocked it up, make sure that it sits flat. But this again will just kind of help draw everything together. That way when we're drilling, we're making a proper spot that it's going to be nice and squared up. Okay. So with the hardware in place, before we torque everything down, this is where we're going to be drilling out using a 1/2 inch drill bit. So just kind of make sure that this fits pretty well square up, and then we'll just start drilling this out. And once you drill that out, just make sure that your bolt can pass through here, and then we're just going to go ahead and we're going to get our nut put there just the same as we did the others. And then we'll then go ahead, snug everything down with a 3/4 inch wrench. So we'll tackle all of these first, and then we'll do this one last. With everything snugged down with that ratcheting wrench, I'm just going to come back here with my torque wrench. Torque settings are going to be found in the instruction manual, and you want to make sure these metal tabs stay on there. If not, you do have access to be able to put a wrench on that. Otherwise, they do tend to kind of just spin around. So go through, get these all torqued down properly. With all of your hardware torqued down properly, to get these tabs removed, you can kind of just go back and forth. It's just a small tack weld, and they should pop off. Now sometimes it's not so easy. If that's the case, you can kind of just take a pair of needle nose or vice grips or whatever you may have and just kind of twist this around and kind of move it around. If you can get close to where it's tacked on there, it doesn't matter if there's a little bit left. Main thing is these aren't sticking out. So go through, get these all removed. Now on the passenger side, it was slightly different, not by much. As I mentioned earlier, the hole was actually already on the outside and I had to drill it cross to get this one made. If you don't have this intercooler housing with the vents, you might be able to get it from the inside, but I just ran that 1/2-inch drill bit across. Same thing, just to get that mounted up. Other than that, it's going to be exactly the same. The base plates are officially installed, but we also have our safety cables, and these are in case of a catastrophic disconnect. If everything was to fail here, we still have something attached to the frame. And it seems like the best way to get these attached is on the side of the frame. There's a large access hole, so I'm going to feed this in through this side here first. It's kind of tight here. So I ended up taking this and passing it through from the outside in and then just kind of pulling this through. It's fairly tight here, but once we get it to this point, we have 2 access holes or mounting holes that we can use. So I'm going to take our quick link, slide this on, and then we'll just get these attached. And then we'll just tighten this up. If you want, you can put a little bit of thread lock on here as well. And really again, this is just for a catastrophic disconnect. So if any of these are getting in the way later on, you can zip tie these up to get them out of the way. We'll just go ahead, get this snug down. And then we'll just go ahead and repeat the same process on the other side. Normally, I would recommend leaving the bumper fascia off on a vehicle. That way you can get the rest of your components all set up nice and easy. But this one doesn't exactly have a crossbar, so it's really not that necessary. I think we'll still be able to run everything pretty easily. So at this point, we'll just go ahead, get our bumper and everything put back in the reverse order. Just make sure that you're plugging everything in. Now there might be a little bit of trimming involved to get this back in place, so I'm going to slide this in and see where we're at. Now we are going to have to trim a little bit of this where the tow hook popped through for our arms and our safety chain loops to get in. I think what I'm going to do, we have a block heater on the other side that sits in this portion. I'm going to try to leave that there. So I'm going to mark this out and then I'm going to just follow along. There's some this indent here. I think that's a good way to at least get it close. So I'm going to measure this out, make sure it's even on the other side. And then I'm going to be using, I have an oscillating tool. I'm just going to run along here and then we can mock it up, see how it looks. Now to get the burrs off, you can take a file or even just a utility knife and just kind of run along here to get these burrs knocked down. Now with everything put back in place, we officially installed our base plate. Make sure you plug in your camera as well. That's something that one more electrical connection that you need to make sure you take care of. Now at this point, we'll go ahead, we'll get the rest of our flat toe components set up. It does come with this nice bracket for your 6-pole. You can also get your breakaway switch. And I think we're going to kind of mount it up somewhere down here, and that should work well. When it comes to trimming out the tow hook area to get this to fit, I did end up having to cut up a little bit higher than I thought. So this plane up here did have to get trimmed out. And this is definitely tight, so you almost end up going into the chrome. I didn't have to, but getting this notched out and getting it to fit nice and easy is going to help getting the rest of the bumper put back on. So just a little helpful tip there. And that was a look and installation of the Blue Ox base plate on a 2020 Chevy Silverado.